This is just a sample of the audiobook. To get the complete audiobook, access the link posted in the first comment.
I spread out a large piece of sailcloth and covered it equally all over with a strong liquid made of glue and isinglass, which saturated it thoroughly. On it we then laid wool and hair from the sheep and goats, which had been carefully cleaned and prepared, and rolled and beat it until it adhered tolerably smoothly to the cloth. Finally it became, when perfectly dry, a covering for the floor of our sitting-room, by no means to be despised. One morning, just after these labours at the salt cave were completed, happening to awake unusually early, I turned my thoughts, as I lay waiting for sunrise, to considering what length of time we had now passed on this coast, and discovered to my surprise that the very next day would be the anniversary of our escape from the wreck. My heart swelled with gratitude to the gracious God, who had then granted us deliverance, and ever since had loaded us with benefits, and I resolved to set tomorrow apart as a day of thanksgiving, in joyful celebration of the occasion. My mind was full of indefinite plans when I rose, and the day's work began as usual. I took care that everything should be cleaned, cleared, and set in order both outside and inside our dwelling. None, however, suspecting that there was any particular object in view. Other, more private preparations I also made for the next day. At supper, I made the coming event known to the assembled family. "Good people, do you know that tomorrow is a very great and important day? We shall have to keep it in honour of our merciful escape to this land, and call it Thanksgiving Day." Everyone was surprised to hear that we had already been 12 months in the country. Indeed, my wife believed I might be mistaken, until I showed her how I had calculated regularly ever since the 31st of January, on which day we were wrecked, by marking off in my almanac the Sundays as they arrived for the remaining 11 months of that year. "Since then," I added, "I have counted 31 days. This is the 1st of February. We landed on the 2nd. Therefore tomorrow is the anniversary of the day of our escape." Before they went to sleep, I could hear my boys whispering among themselves about Father's mysterious allusions to next day's festival and rejoicing. I offered no explanations and went to sleep, little guessing that the rogues had laid a counterplot, far more surprising than my simple plan for their diversion. Nothing less than the roar of artillery startled me from sleep at daybreak next morning. I sprang up and found my wife as much alarmed as I was by the noise. Otherwise I should have been inclined to believe it fancy. "Fritz, dress quickly and come with me," cried I, turning to his hammock. Lo, it was empty. Neither he nor Jack was to be seen. Altogether bewildered, I was hastily dressing when their voices were heard, and they rushed in, shouting, "Hurrah! Didn't we rouse you with a right good thundering salute?" But, perceiving at a glance that we had been seriously alarmed, Fritz hastened to apologize for the thoughtless way in which they had sought to do honor to the day of Thanksgiving, without considering that an unexpected cannon shot would startle us unpleasantly from our slumbers. We readily forgave the authors of our alarm, in consideration of the good intention which had prompted the deed, and, satisfied that the day had at least been duly inaugurated, we all went quietly to breakfast. Afterward we sat together for a long time, enjoying the calm beauty of the morning, and talking of all that had taken place on the memorable days of the storm a year ago. For I desired that the awful events of that time should live in the remembrance of my children, with a deepening sense of gratitude for our deliverance. Therefore I read aloud passages from my journal, as well as many beautiful verses from the Psalms, expressive of joyful praise and thanksgiving, so that even the youngest among us was impressed and solemnized at the recollections of escape from a terrible death, and also led to bless and praise the name of the Lord, our deliverer. Chapter 23. The Island Sports Carnival. Dinner followed shortly after this happy service, and I then announced for the afternoon a grand display of athletic sports, in which I and my wife were to be spectators and judges. "Father, what a grand idea! Oh, how jolly! Are we to run races? And prizes. Will there be prizes, Father? The judges offer prizes for competition in every sort of manly exercise, replied I. Shooting, running, riding, leaping, climbing, swimming. We will have an exhibition of your skill in all. Now for it. Trumpeters, sound for the opening of the lists. Uttering these last words in a stentorian voice and wildly waving my arms toward a shady spot, where the ducks and geese were quietly resting, had the absurd effect I intended. Up they all started in a fright, gabbling and quacking loudly, to the infinite amusement of the children, who began to bustle about in eager preparations for the contest, and begging to know with what they were to begin. Let us have shooting first, and the rest when the heat of the day declines. Here is a mark I've got ready for you, said I, producing a board roughly shaped like a kangaroo, and of about the size of one. This target was admired, but Jack could not rest satisfied till he'd added ears and a long leather strap for a tail. It was then fixed in the attitude most characteristic of the creature, and the distance for firing measured off. Each of the three competitors was to fire twice. Fritz hit the kangaroo's head each time, Ernest hit the body once, and Jack, by a lucky chance, shot the ears clean away from the head, which feat raised a shout of laughter. A second trial with pistols ensued, in which Fritz again came off victor. Then, desiring the competitors to load with small shot, I threw a little board as high as I possibly could up in the air, each in turn aiming at and endeavouring to hit it before it touched the ground. In this I found to my surprise that the sedate Ernest succeeded quite as well as his more impetuous brother, Fritz. As for Jack, his flying board escaped wholly uninjured. After this followed archery, which I liked to encourage, foreseeing that a time might come when ammunition would fail. And in this practice I saw with pleasure that my elder sons were really skilful, while even little Franz acquitted himself well. A pause ensued, and then I started a running match. Fritz, Ernest, and Jack were to run to Falconhurst by the most direct path. The first to reach the tree was to bring me, in proof of his success, a penknife I had accidentally left on the table in my sleeping-room. At a given signal, away went the racers in fine style. Fritz and Jack, putting forth all their powers, took the lead at once, running in advance of Ernest, who started at a good steady pace, which I predicted he would be better able to maintain than such a furious rate as his brothers. But, long before we expected to see them back, a tremendous noise of galloping caused us to look with surprise toward the bridge, and Jack made his appearance, thundering along on his buffalo, with the onager and the donkey tearing after him, riderless, and the whole party in the wildest spirits. "Hallo!" cried I. "What sort of foot race do you call this, Master Jack?" He shouted merrily as he dashed up to us, then flinging himself off and saluting us in a playful way. "I very soon saw," said he, "that I hadn't a chance, so, renouncing all idea of the prize, I caught Storm and made him gallop home with me, to be in time to see the others come puffing in. Lightfoot and old Grizzle chose to join me. I never invited them." By and by the other boys arrived, Ernest holding up the knife in token of being the winner, and after hearing all particulars about the running, and that he had reached Falconhurst 2 minutes before Fritz, we proceeded to test the climbing powers of the youthful athletes. In this exercise Jack performed wonders. He ascended with remarkable agility the highest palms whose stems he could clasp, and when he put on his shark-skin buskins, which enabled him to take firm hold of larger trees, he played antics like a squirrel or a monkey, peeping and grinning at us, first on one side of the stem and then on the other, in a most diverting way. Fritz and Ernest climbed well, but could not come near the grace and skill of their active and lively young brother. Riding followed, and marvellous feats were performed, Fritz and Jack proving themselves very equal in their management of their different steeds. I thought the riding was over, when little Franz appeared from the stable in the cave, leading young Grumble, the bull-calf, with a neat saddle of kangaroo hide, and a bridle passed through his nose-ring. The child saluted us with a pretty little air of confidence, exclaiming, "Now, most learned judges, prepare to see something quite new and wonderful.